Hello, I am Fantastic and Fantastic, and today I'm going to be reviewing the new Cerberus legendary creature that is coming out in Creature Quests. So, Cerberus is going to be a brand new legendary card you can acquire during the next coming summoning event, and this article will be examining their strengths, weaknesses, where they fit in the current meta, what you should be doing with them, as well as an updated tier list with them placed in it, as well as any changes that have been made since the last tier list inceptions for offense and defense. So, because Cerberus is a brand new creature to be released, they tend to have a certain degree of power creep associated with them. Essentially, power creep is the notion that newer things that are released tend to be stronger than older things, just because that's the way the game advances. Things have to get harder, so therefore creatures that are released have to become stronger at the same time. So, while he is definitely a bit more power creep than, say, some of the older legendaries, one nice aspect about him is that the awakenings that they do possess are not actually mandatory for success. So you actually can very easily get away with not actually awakening your Cerberus and using him as he comes right out of the box, because this kit is actually very powerful, and the awakenings, while okay, are not necessary. So all of this will be covered through this video. So basically, at a glance, their special ability does 120% power damage while ignoring defense. So that's a huge amount of potential damage, because it's basically true damage. You also gain a 40% power, burn, and poison for 3 turns. So that's a very large dot, as well as a large amount of damage. But the thing is, because he has 3 heads, it's hitting 3 times. So in theory, you're hitting 360% power on one target if you get lucky, let's say, and then you have the same burn and poison at the same time. Furthermore, if something was already burned or poisoned, you heal at 20% power per head. At max level and max totems, max awakened, so level 105, it's got only 15,000 health, so definitely on the lower end. It's got 2,000 defense, so it's a little on the squishy side. It's got a modest amount of power, 2176, quite a high amount actually, and quite a high amount of luck, at least for a damage dealing character, 2376. Their awakenings are, in all honesty, average or poor to average. Like, it's not that amazing. Like, the first one, usually most players tend to look at the first 5 because that's what gets them to level 105. And after that, becomes a little too expensive to invest in them. So this article will be in the YouTube description down below. It might be a little hard to see, so that you might have better luck in the article. But the first awakening is only plus 10% power heal versus poisoned and burning enemies. So a bit more heal, not that big of a deal. A little bit of defense, 5%. Plus 20% chance for one head, just one head, to counterattack with your special ability when hit by a special ability. So basically, you have a chance that 120% power damage with the burn and poison. It's an okay counterattack, not that amazing in all honesty. Next is 15% health, which is useful and important because they actually have very low health otherwise. And then 15 to max level. So those first 5 awakenings are just, they're all right, but it's not really helping them that much. It really just gives them a bit more survivability. It's not actually really increasing their damage output, because none of those awakenings outside of technically max level cap are actually bolstering their damaging output potential. So that's why I actually will encourage you not to awaken them unless you have duplicates, or you just truly love them and you got them 4 dot. Because the next several awakenings are actually okay. It's got plus 10% power to heal when they're poisoned or burned, so 40% power it can deal total per head. So it's quite a high amount of healing. It's got 20% chance for additional 20% additional chance to counter. Again, well, 40% chance to counter, but the counter wasn't that great, so again, it's not helpful that much. And then lastly, its special ability is plus 40% chance for each head to strike again. That is a huge damage increase, because you're most likely going to have 1, maybe 2 heads hit again. And when that occurs, you can potentially have doubled your damage, and that's an amazing amount of burst potential. So that costs 15 greater essences. So I would strongly suggest you don't do that unless it's 4 dot, unless it's really the best thing you have available. But again, 15 essences is not something that the average player has. So this is why I would encourage you not to actually heavily awaken your Cerberus, or not even spend the essences, because he comes so strong right out of the box. He has the same amount of damage, same amount of poison burn. He gets a little bit more healing, a bit more defensiveness and stats from being level 105. So it's not really that necessary. And like I said, if you're not getting the final awakening, it's not that powerful. So like I said, it's not worth doing essences, because compared to other legendary creatures, a lot of other legendary creatures gain much more meaningful and powerful awakenings as you get to that 105 level, which costs 5 essences. So in all honesty, I would probably just prioritize other creatures at that point, and if you had essences to spare, maybe think about dumping them into Cerberus. Otherwise, there's no actual need, because again, his damage output is not really hindered. It's quite high to begin with. It's one of the higher damaging abilities actually currently available. So I would just leave him as is, because it technically at level 1-5 does 30% power heal per head, so in theory, if it's already burned or poisoned, you get 90% power. It's a good amount of healing, but it's only helping themselves. It's not necessary. Unless you're basically relying on everyone dying in Cerberus solos, it's not going to really work out, in my opinion. So how can we maximize Cerberus' potential? So basically, Cerberus suffers from the random targeting, and the random targeting is a terrible aspect when the floor has more than one creature. So in PvP challenges, the first floor, which tends to be the harder ones, you can't actually target and single out something you want to nuke and kill. Unlike other special abilities, you're going to be hitting all of them and just doing these burns and poisons, which does damage, but it's not going to save you, because things, if they're dead, can't hurt you, but things that are slightly damaged and burned and poisoned can still hurt and kill you. So it's not really that meaningful. But if it's against a boss or one creature, it actually has one of the highest power multipliers in the game. You get 360% power damage along with the 40% power burn of poison and power burn and poison. So this is actually a very high amount of damage he is putting out. And unlike, say, the Phoenix Burn, the 360% power component is multiplied. So it can be benefiting from your combo dot multiplier. You can get 16 times, which will be dealing spectacular amounts of damage. And another thing to keep in mind is that the dot component of burns and poisons do not actually benefit from the combo multiplier. So even if you combo Cerberus, he's only going to be getting the 360% power component being multiplied. The burns and poison will still tick for the same value, so it's something just to keep in the back of your head. Now, this will obviously make him one of the stronger nuking potentials or nuking possibilities available in the game, because that true damage component plus very high multiplier. And in theory, like, you should be really utilizing Cerberus as your nuking option on your team. Even with an 8 times multiplier, so 3 unique colors, it's going to be dealing very high amounts of damage. So that is basically his primary role. He doesn't have any damage mitigation. He doesn't have any adjacent healing. It's just self-healing. He doesn't provide any he doesn't provide any buffs. He's just damage. So that's how you should really build him. You don't want him to have this multiple colors of the same, multiple combo dots of the same color. You want him to have the highest multiplier possible just to do as much damage. And the burn and poison damage technically does add very high amounts of output, but that's more for a PvE application when things have gigantic health pools and they take much longer to kill. So, ranking Cerberus. How does Cerberus rank in this current meta? And just want you to keep in mind that the ranking tiers always assume every creature is fully awoken, so basically all 6 red stars. They have same number of combo dots. And like I already mentioned, you don't need to awaken Cerberus. He's good out of the box. Obviously, he becomes more powerful fully awoken, but it's not necessary by any means. So, in terms of offense, Cerberus is an A. And this is because he has average durability, he's got the self-healing component, as well as the potential for very large single target damage. However, because the damage is random in nature, you can't utilize him very well on the non-boss floors, because you can use the special, it's going to hit random targets, you can't snipe or pick off certain high-risk creatures. So this is a little problematic, in my opinion, because you can't, say, funnel mana into him. Because, like, say something like Vampire, who also has a self-healing component, Vampire tend to nuke and destroy one creature with their special abilities. Cerberus will hit everything willy-nilly, so that's why it's not going to be an S tier for that reason. Furthermore, he doesn't really offer much other benefits. Yes, he does have self-healing, but it's only self-healing. Vampire at least heals everything around him. And if we want to compare him to the 2 S-tier purple creatures of Vampire and Abomination, Abomination is tankier because it's a giant after all. He has a more relevant counterattack to a certain extent, but it's more so the fact that he's tankier and he hits incredibly hard. Plus, the debuffs that the Abomination apply are very meaningful, but the stun is just truly amazing. Plus, the fact that it's not random in nature, he can nuke and instantly take out, say, a single target is powerful. Furthermore, Abomination's attack break is actually crucial to overcoming Draconic Templars. If you attack break a Draconic Templar, they are going to start hitting you for very little amounts of damage. On the flip side, Vampire is also a dark creature who's S tier, but they have possibly similar or higher healing potential, especially when there's multiple targets present, because Vampire hits the one, gets the full heal. But Vampire not only has a very large nuke, it's single target, so you can hit the appropriate creatures, but he can also heal adjacent allies. And because he can heal adjacent allies, he has significant more utility. So a very common strategy is actually to build a team of lots of dark dots and get Vampire ready for turn 2. And on turn 2, you use his special, you blow up something instantly, you heal your adjacent allies. It's just a great card to have all around. So this may sound a little negative, but it's just the fact that Dark has stronger options is what's kind of keeping Cerberus out of S tier. Furthermore, because the random target nature makes it so he has less impact on non-boss floors, is a big drawback overall. Furthermore, the burns and poisons, yes, they add damage, but they don't actually take effect until you get hit. You don't want to get hit in PvP. You want to do all the hitting yourself. So it takes time. The self-healing doesn't heal unless they have the debuff on them. So again, multiple targets will not guarantee you actually heal yourself. So in my article, I basically explained why the rankings are S, A, B, C, and D. If you want to take a look, it's in the YouTube description down below. But I'm not going to go over that again. In terms of defense, they are ranked as C. And it's because defenders, to rank highly, they have to basically feature the capacity to wipe out full health or mana teams when their crowd control, like their stun or silence, fails to land, because they will basically just like do amazing amounts of damage. They will stun, they will silence, they'll incapacitate, they'll keep self-healing, they're durable, like all these different factors that make a Dungeon Defender S tier. And unfortunately, Cerberus doesn't really possess any of them. Yes, he may have a counterattack, but it's not relevant enough, because remember, he's doing 3 random hits with a chance of more when fully awoken. But again, random hits are not going to kill off anything in particular. A full health team of all 5 creatures is not going to be killed unless you get extremely lucky and somehow you hit all of the same target. Not a likely proposition to happen. So that is problematic. So even if Cerberus gets to cast a special, he's not going to kill anyone. Furthermore, there's no damage mitigation component when something is debuffed. So it's not even going to heal himself, probably because it has to hit multiple targets again and again. So he's just going to be a poorly ranked defender. However, he stays out of D because usually C defenders have chances of wiping out a team if things are dead. And when things are dead, Cerberus can do reasonably well, because when there are less targets to basically hit, you're more likely to strike the same one multiple times, and when you strike the same one, that's when you can kill them, but that's when you actually get the healing component, so it makes them a little safer in that regards. But even so, D and C, they're both poor choice dungeon defenders in all honesty. So, tier list. Basically, I have ongoing tier lists that rank the cards, all the legendary creatures, for offense and defensive purposes. There will be up and down arrows based on if a creature moves up or down, based on the last tier list posting. And Cerberus is added into A, as you can see up there, but the Baroness is actually moving up 2 tiers from D to B. And this is because Baroness actually has a massive Mend buff that triggers immediately. And Mend, while I may have shunned it in the past, actually has meaningful contributions on teams where you're facing floor 1s that are extremely dangerous. Because the thing is, generally speaking right now, the stun meta is very popular. Basically, a lot of players are running heavy stun cards and basically stunning you into oblivion and you just die. So with the Baroness of Blood, you basically get to pop her Mend buff, and that Mend buff will stay there provided it's not dispelled. And every time a creature takes action, they receive a massive amount of healing, but if they're stunned at the end of your turn, they still receive the healing. So you can be stunned and you can still heal. And that's actually a very crucial aspect of the Baroness of Blood. The fact that when you're stunned, you're actually able to put out a healing component. So this actually can make her stronger than true healers. It's not going to save you immediately, it will save you over time. Now, this obviously is used to counter out dangerous floor 1s, but unfortunately the Draconic Templar dispels buffs. So it's actually not going to work against him, but it can work against, say, Light Elementals or the Blue Drakes. Blue Drake will probably kill her, but once you have the Mend buff going, no one else should die, because generally speaking, those floor compositions have a little less damage output, so you may or may not be able to heal through those. You might have to res her, you just have to deal with the fact that she's dead, but hey, it's something interesting to think about. In terms of dungeon defense list, nothing has changed. Cerberus was added into C. No one moved up or down. No one got buffed or really modified. And to be honest, dungeon defenders are in a little bit of a weak place overall, because generally speaking, the most danger or threat is floor 1. But again, the meta might be shifting, so things might change around later on. So in conclusion, Cerberus is a powerful new legendary creature to come to Creature Quest. They do have the amazing potential to deal massive amounts of burst damage to a single target because it removes the randomness aspect. The dots and burn and tick for meaningful amounts of damage. They have a great potential to self-heal once they've already been debuffed, and they have the potential to at least solo some dungeons, or at least solo bosses if they don't get one shot, because the self-healing component should be quite strong, as well as the damaging aspect alongside. So I guess the main selling point of Cerberus would be the fact that they don't need awakenings to excel, which is kind of unusual for a legendary creature. They're just so strong right away, and they don't actually become that much stronger with awakenings until you get the final one. So it would be worth pursuing in the new summoning event if you need a new nuking card potential, especially in Dark. So let me know what you think about Cerberus in the comments below. Do you think you would be using your saved up diamonds to try and summon them? Do you want to invest in them heavily? Would you invest in them heavily if you acquired a 3 or possibly a 4 dot? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Hopefully you'll have a fantastic day, and happy questing.